Hey everyone, thanks for dropping in. For this quick little video here, little update. I wanted to get this video out yesterday, but didn't get home all day, so we'll get into it now. I did make two trades. A little bit frustrated with how things played out. The Taron Armstrong in made it very, very clear and easy for me this week, but with him being ruled out, it did change things, and it was going to be Armstrong in and Xavier Cooks in, and I did have to change that. And the main reason is that I didn't have another guy that you could pop in on the double there in guards, was kind of the only real thought. Edwards was the guy that could be bought in, but I decided to sort of go against that. And I'm still looking to put my foot on the throat and try and get push up higher into these overall honors, which is good, with a slight concern on the bench. And that added to it. Obviously last night as well, with Henschel getting 4 minutes for 4 points there. Got Ulbrich and Hickey, they're still kicking on that bench. And the plan was to remove one of them next week and probably boost next week. So I held off on the boost in this one. Did bring in Galloway. I just didn't feel like any of the options were clear cut. Obviously Armstrong was the guy under 200k, and then the rest of the picks, you've obviously had Majok Deng, who doesn't have a double, and I was looking to get someone on a double in that starter. I suppose Lepepe could have been an interesting one to play on that double there, or just have Magnay on the single. Galloway is the guy. Gak was another option. Obviously, just seeing his scores in that first couple of games, even with the minutes, I think 16 minutes for 0 points in one of the games. So turned me off a little bit with a couple of poor ones in that starter. Galloway, obviously with the minutes, is going to be good without Armstrong, but with Armstrong, I think he gets a lot more catch and shoot open threes. Edwards is very ball dominant, just going off last night. And to only have, I think, 3.5, he played the first 3.5 minutes, didn't get back on in the first quarter. I was like, oh, that's great. And then only played 3 minutes in the second quarter. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Thankfully played the 13 odd minutes to get just over 20 in the game for a lovely PBM of just over 1. So happy enough in the end with the 21, and hopefully he can get a few more shots up in their second game this week, which obviously does get a lot harder against Sydney, but we know that those games at least are a bit more of an up and down type of fixture, and hopefully at least somewhere around that 90 to 87 or a bit higher would be nice in that secondary game. But that does mean that I end up getting Adams again after doing me really, really well in round 2. Obviously going back to the well on that one. I do think Cooks is going to outdo him. I think a higher chance that will happen anyway, just with the consistency and obviously the break even as well, coming off a couple of 40s where Adams is coming off a couple of 20s. And that's where the higher break even is. But we know that he can get hot and he can score really well. And with 2 games against 2 really solid sides at the moment, obviously Cairns without their two of their big dogs are going to be probably a little bit, it's going to be a little bit easier for him. But that Adelaide game will be super fun in that Adelaide's home. So they probably looked at this week and went, oh, we've got a couple of tougher matchups. And that's where the boys were able to get a bit of rest last week. And hopefully they're fit and firing to go. So I think Adams and Cooks will both be great. But I do have one eye on next week, looking to improve my bench a little bit. So one of these guys, Ulbrich or Hickey, potentially even Henschel now, I got to go next week. And we'll see how things play out in terms of cash cows and the like. There's a couple of mid-range guys to potentially look at. One eye on round 6 as well, we need to have a look at, with obviously a lot more games, a few more doubles from different teams. There's a few guys that come back into a nice stretch with Sem returning into some decent form. There's a bunch of guys you can select from that team. Walton Jr., Hurt, all these types of guys. So yes, keep an eye on all of it. Last night you had Wardenberg score pretty well. Obviously Edwards as well with the 28. So Wardy was an interesting one. If you grabbed him this week or last week, obviously you'd be very happy with the 28. And Edwards really returned well. He was 10 at half time and then started scoring really well. And yelled out N1 a few times, that's for sure, fighting through traffic. It's going to be an interesting round. I'm noticing just in the Podmasters League, there's a few guys that have made different decisions. A few guys got rid of Cam Oliver last week, and then that's changing things up a bit. We got a few guys bringing that were able to keep Jack White. I did move him on this week there, along with Illy, and I will regret that a little bit for cash, but potentially points as well. The thing is with White, if he happens to go, for a mid-20s this week, which we know he's capable of, although recent form probably suggests that that's not the case. We get to see him against Adelaide, so that'll be a fun game for sure, depending how well Adelaide plays. But if he does get a 20 odd, it works out for me. If he goes mid 30s again, then I think the holders win that one. But yeah, I just need to use his cash to get to one of the big dogs. The other option obviously was to go a bit cheaper, which I've seen a few guys do. But as I was saying, with the Podmasters League, there's a few guys that have gone different routes. Some have gone Cooks, some have gone Adams, some haven't gone for any of those guys, and they've gone Davis and got, you know, Wardenberg and Edwards and these types of guys, and yeah, potentially setting themselves up with a bit of cash in hand, or to move on from the Harrells, from Davises, to get to PJC next week. So a lot of fun things happening. Hopefully things go well. I think what I'm really riding on this week is obviously Oliver, and it's going to be Adams. They're the two guys this week that become really, really important. And I'm seeing a few people, you know, use their second boost, so they're catching up to me now in terms of boost usage. And we'll rip our third likely next week, unless we don't see too many options, or if we get Olbrich or Hickey to come out with a decent score, then they can keep their break evens fairly low. You know, 10 below would be nice for those guys, and yeah, hopefully you can get a few more cash rises out of them if that's the case, or at least hopefully one of them does pretty well. So yeah, whichever one I sell then isn't going to lose any money, and the other one can kind of make a little bit more while we're sitting there. And then Lepepe is my big money maker on the bench there, and of course, surprisingly, Henschel's still going to make a tiny bit of cash there with his 4. Interesting week, this one. I wish you guys all the best of luck with your trades, with your selections. But yeah, I think Cam Oliver has been traded out by a lot of people in the end, you know, that I'm following in that Podmasters League anyway. So he's going to be an important one. And if we can get a 19, 21, 24, something like that, if we can get 40 to 45 out of Galloway for the double, and you know, Davis can go pretty solid but not nuclear like last week, and Adams can go sort of 80, I think then we'll have a pretty winning week and we'll move up in rankings. And outside of that, hopefully at worst we kind of hold this week, but we'll see how things play out as a non-boost week, and we'll go from there. Thanks guys for being here. Catch you in the next one.